Today we got a good one. We got some real heavy to eat. And this is about to really basically challenge all your thoughts. Because this is how you label your thoughts, right? We label our thoughts as either spiritual thought or rational thought. Now, are both these ways of thinking in battle with each other? Are they in union with each other? We're gonna figure that out and see which one to be. Either we are battling these thoughts, the spiritual thought and rational thought are battling, or they're in union. Because you might have people tell you that it doesn't make sense of a God, it doesn't make sense of faith or none of that because it's not rational, right? I very rarely hear spiritual people talk about rational thought and say something is wrong with it. Very rarely. It's always the people that value rationality over spiritual thought that always disses the spiritual thought. But let's get into the historical divide between religion versus science, because that's when a real divide happened between rational thought and spiritual thought. So, the ancient beliefs, early humans have always relied on spiritual insight, myths, and religious traditions. Right? They have flourished all the way until a point where they have got conquered by, I guess, through their, like I guess they got conquered through tradition, through losing themselves. They got conquered through war, through battle, through not being able to come together and value each other. I mean, we're here from history, right? We are a part of history. Don't get that confused. So, all of history did not die out. The beliefs did, right? We started to believe something different. We started to go in a different direction. So, the people of that generations are still here to this day. So, don't just think of yourself as like a modern day person, because in reality, you come from generations upon generations of people to get here. You know what I'm saying? So you have to look at your blood, your DNA, as like it's really historical. You have to look at yourself as very important, right? So the ancient beliefs, they have died off, and we have the rise of rationalism. Um, and I do remember reading a book about where before then it was like the argument of over gods, like a monotheism or polytheism. And so really during the Greek times, it was we tried to understand why we even sacrifice to a god to begin with, and why would this happen. And so we were dealing with heavy stuff because we believed back then in tradition that sacrificing was good. It was seen as like a good thing. But that's when we start to question that way of thinking, right? That spiritual way of thinking, because it was too heavily like following tradition. It wasn't seeing past that I have to actually sacrifice this kid's life for something I don't know what I'm doing this for. You know what I'm saying? So you don't know if it's a good reason or a bad reason. So this is why we start to develop rationalism. What seems rational for a human being? What seems justifiable, right? And then later down the line, we get a scientific revolution that shifts towards empirical data with Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton. And I really don't know much about this era besides Newton, where he defines gravity. But I'm gonna have to do more research into this area. Then you have the Enlightenment, where human reason became the primary authority over religious dogma. So this is where people have started to value rationalism and reason before spirituality, religion, God, and all that. Because if I can't explain why I'm going to hell, what's the point of me living my life like I'm, you know what I'm saying? So people didn't really want to believe in that because they were, whatever reasons they have. And you have modern atheism and spirituality, right? So it's how thinkers like Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Deepak Chopra argue different sides. I really don't know much about Dawkins, Sam Harris, or Deepak Chopra, but I may have to make a video explaining these different arguments and these sides they talk about. But even as far as that, the science of spiritual experience, right? Now we have a science of spiritual experience where we do research upon what the meditation does to your brain, or psychedelics does to your brain, or even having deep states of consciousness does to your brain. And now we also have quantum mysticism, and we think, does quantum mechanics allow room for consciousness influencing a reality? Like we have something called the observer effect, or even as far as when you speak positivity into the water or negativity, the water has different forms based off what energy you're giving the water. So it's pretty like interesting to see if what type of energy stores, and the energy we give off, can it be captured, or it's like way more past than just modern science, because it's like explaining the mind, the physical. I mean, well, beyond the physical. And we also have near death and psychedelic studies. Are spiritual experiences just brain chemistry, or is there something more? So this is like even with DMT, ayahuasca, LSD. When you're actually experiencing these realities, is that actually there? We just can't access it because our chemicals in the brain are not altered at the right time, or is these just something we make up in the mind? You know what I'm saying? Um, and for the rationalist critique of spirituality, we have logical fallacies and mysticism, confirmational bias, and I think that's like, oh, when 11:11 is on there and something bad or something good happens, you like, man, something good happened because it's 11:11, and that's confirmation bias. Or anecdotal evidence. I might actually have to look up this one real quick just to give a clear. It's based on personal experience or observations collected in a systematic manner. So it's anecdotal evidence could be like, every morning I get up and stub my toe because I forget to pray, and it'll be a study of like you why you stub your toe because you forget to pray, and so it'll be something like, I guess, like that, like, so when I wake up in the morning and I forget to it seems like I lose track of my mind. I lose track of my thoughts, and you start to develop why I lose track of my mind. Because if I would have prayed, I would have been more aware. I would have been more, you know what I'm saying? So this is how anecdotal evidence can also misobscure the truth, right? But you also have materialism and physicalism, which is the argument that consciousness arises only from brain activity. And you also have the burden of proof. If spiritual claims cannot be tested, should they be believed? So this is like with people saying heaven. If I can't prove heaven, why should I believe in heaven? If I can't prove hell, why should I believe in hell? So this is also something that rationalists use against spiritual people, is the burden of proof. I can't give you proof of why you might suffer for doing bad things. I can't give you proof for why you might go into a good place for doing good things. I can't give you proof for that. So this is the argument of rationalists. But the spiritualist critique on rationalism is the limits of science. Can science explain subjective experiences or the origin of consciousness? And no, it can't. It cannot explain the origin of energy. It cannot explain where the atoms come from. It can dissect the atoms and go deeper into, oh, this atom split into that. But it can't fully all the way understand, where did this come from? Where did that come from? Because science, this is the problem with science. You're going to always be asking questions with science. You're not going to fully prove science to be, because science is the study of something, right? And we're always going to be studying ourselves and how the universe relates to us, right? And that's my belief over rationalism and science. But we also have the problem of meaning. Rationalism alone may lead to nihilism without deeper purpose. Now, this is the philosopher Nietzsche. Nietzsche talks about life has no meaning. This is all Nietzsche talks about. Life has no meaning. Um, but we find meaning because we find meaning through our limits. We find meaning through the things that we can do and we can't do, and we try to pick an area where we can make an effect, right? Where we can do something and feel validation for our lives. The meaning part is something that God gives it and the society gives to you, because meaning is like what you see as valuable. What do you see as something that persist your way of living? You know what I'm saying? Um, but we ain't gonna touch into that deeply. We also got non-dualism, which mystics argue that the true knowledge transcends logic. The Zen paradoxes. So this is basically talking about the paradoxes of life, and I think one of these paradoxes is so below, so above, or so below, so above, and so that's kind of like a trans. It's always transcending logic, because what you get in your inner world is what you're going to get in your outer world, and sometimes what happens in your outer world may reflect what's going on in your inner world, and this is like that argument, and it appears to be true most of the time, but you know we have, it's just deep. That one's deep to me, because if you are heavily intuitive and you feel like you feel like demons are around you, and you feel like people with not good intentions are around you, it may be hard to prove that, because you may feel something off this person, a demonic energy, an evil energy, but how would you be able to prove that? That's why it's kind of very hard to like deal with like mysticism to begin with, because you can't really prove something to be until it happens, and then you already know it would have happened, because like God is telling you, He's giving you the signal. Um, so bridging the gap between both these approaches is something like Carl Jung, Alan Watts, and Terence McKenna did. They combine reason and intuition, which I agree with. I agree with Carl Jung. Subconscious works and even the anima of the mind. It's crazy how you can even come up with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Science and spirituality together is psychology, meditation research, and even Eastern philosophies. So psychology is something that came from spiritual thought, right? Um, it's like the study of behavior and what we view as good and bad. So that's where psychology really stems from. Um, it's also a simulation perspective, and if everything is a simulation, meaning that this universe is coded in ones and zeros, then the way of thinking, it would also be ones and zeros, meaning it's no difference between rational thought and spiritual thought. It's just ones and zeros. So to conclude this in this video, are we really rational or spiritual? Are we both combined? Right? Now, I want to make this video only to understand what is really going on in the psyche of society, and why does society have a problem so much with religion and Christianity. But I know the answer to my question, but I want you guys to think about that from a logical, a rational point of view. You can think of it from a spiritual point of view, but the answer is you have evil, you have demons, you have temptations, right? But think of it from a rational point of view of why society might go against religion. If it's something that was founded, our lives was founded upon ancient beliefs. It was founded upon religion, a belief in a higher being. So I want you guys to take this video and really have a discussion in the comment section because I need help also. Like I don't know what I'm do with all this. You know what I'm saying? Um, but this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching to the end. If you made it this far, bless you. God bless you. Leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification button for more.